When you're looking for the weakest link in a calculation, there are a lot of numbers that you can safely ignore. Those are exact numbers. They have no uncertainty in them, so they're not going to affect how you're going to round off your final calculated result. How can you tell if a number is exact or not? Well, if it wasn't measured, it might be exact. And if it wasn't rounded off, it might be exact. If you take an exact number and you round it off, it's not exact anymore. Usually you can recognize an exact number as a small count. If someone counts things, they can count those without any uncertainty, so those small counts will be exact. Like the number of things in an average. If you're averaging 3 numbers, you're dividing by exactly 3, not approximately 3. Also, sometimes numbers are defined as being exact. For example, the way centimeters are defined is this. 2.54 centimeters is exactly 1 inch. So that's an exact. It's defined to be exact. So the 2.54 in a calculation wouldn't matter as far as counting significant figures goes. Let's look at some examples on this slide here. Here I've got a glove, and there are exactly 5 fingers. That's a small count. But if I were to measure the length of one of the fingers, that would be a measurement. It would have some uncertainty in it. It would not be exact. Here we've got a gold bar. It says 1 kilo on the side, but if you went and weighed it on a very precise balance, it probably would not be exactly 1 kilogram. It would probably be pretty close though. So the mass of this bar is not an exact number. However, if I say that there is exactly 1,000 grams in a kilogram, that's exact. I mean, a kilogram is defined as 1,000 grams. What about the clock over here? There's exactly 60 minutes in an hour, and there's exactly 60 seconds in a minute. Are there exactly 365 days in a year? Well, that's a little bit iffier, right? Because you can have a leap year that's got 366 days in it, and you can have a regular year that is 365 days. And I guess the average year would be 365.25. That's a little ambiguous. So sometimes you have to think pretty carefully about whether something is exact or not. Generally ask yourself these questions. Was it measured? If it was measured, it's not exact. Was it counted? If it's a small count, it will be exact. Was it defined? If it's defined to be exact, it is exact. Oh, and we have some bread down here. If you get a dozen loaves of bread, that's exactly 12 loaves of bread. But if you're looking at how many grams or pounds of bread, if you're looking at the mass of a loaf of bread, that's a measured quantity, so it won't be exact. Some loaves are big, some loaves are small. It can vary. That's why they used to give people a baker's dozen. A baker's dozen is 13 loaves of bread. They would throw an extra loaf of bread to compensate for any loaves that happened to be smaller than average. So you're never going to pick an exact number as your weakest link in a calculation. Let's look at a couple of examples. Say you want to average these 3 numbers. Well, you're going to add the numbers up, and then you're going to divide by the count, the number of numbers that you're averaging. So that 3 is an exact number. That is not going to cut your average down to 1 significant figure, because this is not a measurement. It is a small count. It is an exact number. So when you add these things up, how many significant figures in the sum? Well, this one goes out to the hundredths place. This one goes out to the hundredths place. This one goes out to the hundredths place. So your average is going to go out to the hundredths place as well. Let's look at another one. I told you that you can define a number to be exact. Then it is exact and it won't affect your significant figures. An inch is defined as exactly 2.54 centimeters. That's one of the few numbers that's worth remembering. You're going to encounter that fairly often, and knowing that it is exact is kind of useful. How many inches are in 10 centimeters? Well, here's how you'd set up the calculation, and this is the kind of calculation we're going to do in worksheet 1.4. We've got 10.00 centimeters. That's got 4 significant digits. There are exactly 2.54 centimeters in an inch, so this does not affect how many significant figures your final result is going to have. So your final result, the weakest link is your initial number, and that's going to say round your final result off to that same number of significant figures, 4 significant figures. So to be 3.937 inches.